So now that you've finished stitching block 1, block 2, and block 5, it's time to stitch block 3. Block 3 and block 9 are also very similar, so this video will be for both of them. Block 3 will go here, and block 9 will go here. Same threads, same fabrics, it's just a matter of the blocks are turned slightly differently or mirrored in the hoop. So let's get started stitching block 3. Block 3, here it is. Here's a close-up look at block 3. It is pretty much the same as block 9. They're just mirrored, I guess you could say. They go in two different places on the quilt. So we will do our video with block 3. And the supplies you will need will be, of course, your battleizer hooped up and ready to go. You'll need a square of background fabric B. You'll need a strip of fabric 5. If you're doing the optional different colored backing, the backing you'll need for this is fabric 3. If you're doing the optional wool, you'll need that ready with your edges prepared. You will need your thread A, your thread B, your thread C with a bobbin, that's your quilting thread, and you'll need a standard machine embroidery bobbin. So let's take this to the machine and get going. So we're ready to start block 3. I have water soluble thread in my needle, normal bobbin thread in my bobbin, and I'm going to stitch the placement stitch or step number 1. Step number 2 is to place my wool centered in my placement stitch. And the machine will tag it down. This is an optional step. If you don't want to use wool, you can go ahead and skip step 2 and move on to step 3. Step 3 is next. We'll continue with the water-soluble thread, and we will place our background fabric B centered over the wool. Make sure you can feel at least a ½ inch around all sides of your block, and stitch this down. Step 3 will also give you a placement stitch for your next piece of fabric, which is going to stitch right now. Step 4 is next, and we will place our thread B in the needle only, and we're going to stitch a decorative stitch in this area right here. So step number 5 is to take your fabric 5, your strip of fabric 5, and place it, centering it over this placement stitch. You'll put your fabric right side up, and you'll be able to feel with your fingers right where the wool is, where the stitching line will be. And you can turn it back just to check to be sure you're covered. You'll continue with the same thread, and you'll stitch your tack down. So once your tack down is stitched, it's time to trim it. And I find it easier to actually take the hoop off the machine and get it on a flat surface so I can get to it easier. I'm using my little hoop scissor mini just to get nice and close. This is an applique, so it needs to be nice and tight along the edge. On the outside here, I'm going to leave about a 1/2 inch in the seam allowance. And then once that's trimmed, we can go ahead and put it back on the machine. And the next step, which is step 6, is the satin stitch over the trimmed areas. Step 7 is next, and we're going to use thread A in the needle, and it's going to stitch a flower in the lower corner. Step 8 is the back, so we're going to place our fabric 3, centering it over the middle of the back with the right side facing out. And just make sure you've got it centered. Got my rough side of the battleizer hooped toward the bottom of the hoop so I can just smooth it out and it will stick, or you could use a little spray adhesive. So now I will put it back on the machine, and with water soluble thread I will stitch it down. So now the back's on, so now I will take the hoop off the machine carefully and replace the bobbin thread with thread C and the needle in the bobbin, and we'll do the quilting. Working on my last step, step 9 of block number 3, and I just put in a bobbin of thread C, and in my needle I have thread C as well. So the thread cutter needs to be turned off, so I will go ahead and do that right now. That way you get a tidier looking back. And I will also bring my bobbin thread up before I begin. Bring it up and hold both of them while you start to sew. And let the machine stitch step number 12, or I'm sorry, step number 9, which is the last step of block 3. So we just finished block 3, so now we're ready to go ahead and take it over to the cutting table and get it trimmed up. So we're going to go ahead and trim block 3, and again, just like the other block, we will turn the front of the quilt block back, use the metal edge, 60mm rotary cutter, and we're trimming off the battleizer and the backing to remove the bulk from the seam. And I'm almost done. Okay, block 3 is all trimmed.